Hello? Well, the big dog is back, and he's cleaning up the yard. Stop throw!
Roll the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dohyo here on MrJWags channel. We are recapping an amazing May Basho. But yes, those of you with sharp eyes have noticed I am still not back in New York. We have just opened Charlie and the Chocolate Factory here at the Tuacahn Amphitheater. I will put the links down below if you are interested, but if you are in the American Southwest, come on out. We're having a great time out here, and we are going to be running through October. Alright, we just finished the May Basho. Got some thoughts. As predicted, this was a very exciting Basho. Was not as exciting down the stretch as I had hoped or as we have seen in recent history, but still, a lot of cool stuff happened. First of all, Yokozuna Terunofuji has returned back to the ring. He had 4 Kyujos, 3 complete 0-15 Kyujos, and came back to win with a 14-1 dominant record. How dominant is a 14-1? We have not had one since Tokashoryu over 2 years ago. But yes, he still doesn't look 100%. I don't think we're ever going to see 100% Terunofuji again. But, as I have pointed out before, 90 or even 80% of Terunofuji still seems to be a dominant alpha dog. His only loss was to Meisei. He is one of only 3 Yokozuna who have gone Kyujo 3 full tournaments in a row and then came back with a championship in their comeback. So yes, huge shout out to the returning Yokozuna. He looks great. Hopefully he stays strong and healthy for at least the rest of the year. Although we never know when the day of the knee may be coming. Although of course we know sometimes the day of the knee is also a day of the shoulder. Segueing into Tochinoshin, former Ozeki and former champion, has officially gone Intai. Oh, very sad times in sumo. Tochinoshin was, of course, an amazing story. He started organized sumo back in 2006 as an immigrant from the nation of Georgia. Worked his way up the ranks, had a horrible knee injury in 2013, ended up coming back from that, ended up winning 4 consecutive Makushita and Juryo Yusho. And I know, yeah, he was a guy who had already been up in the division, but Terunofuji didn't do that. Asanoyama didn't do that. It's very impressive. Of course, his career peaked in 2018 with his Yusho and, of course, his amazing Ozeki run. Known, of course, for his very powerful left-hand grip and Sky Crane Yorikirya. Ask Enho about that one. That was a real fun one. He finishes his career with a top rank of Ozeki, 1 championship, 4 Junyusho second place, 3 Ginosho technique prizes, 2 Shukunsho outstanding performances, and 6 Kanto Sho fighting spirit, along with 2 Kinboshi gold star wins over Yokozuna. Tochinoshin, of course, in addition to being a great wrestler, was such a great story, and I know his story ended up bringing in a lot of people from outside the sumo world sort of into the sumo circle. So for you, Tochinoshin, thank you for the amazing career and being the great sumo evangelist that you were. I wish nothing but the best for you and your family going forward. Another one of the amazing storylines we had in this very eventful Basho was the return of Asanoyama, another former Ozeki who, of course, was suspended for breaking COVID protocol for an entire year, fell down the Banzuke, ended up coming back, working his way back up to Makauchi in this tournament. Now, this tournament went generally as predicted, of course, except for my Yusho picks. I thought it was going to be a 12-3 playoff fight on the last day between Asanoyama and Terunofuji. Terunofuji ended up getting 14-1, which I did not expect, but I did expect Asanoyama to get his 12 wins and hopefully pop back up into the joy next tournament. Asanoyama looked great, did not show any ring rust at all. He looks like he's still getting used to facing the top rankers again, but hopefully that will come very quickly. If Asanoyama keeps this level of sumo up, I would not be surprised if he is an Ozeki in the next 6 Basho. And speaking of Ozeki, Kiribayama, as predicted, got 10 plus wins, got to an 11-4, and will be promoted to the 2nd highest rank of Ozeki. He has looked great in the ring. He looks strong, he looks fast, he looks agile. Hopefully this is not the ceiling for Kiribayama, but in fact, a few more tournaments under his belt and perhaps a retirement of a Yokozuna might get him up to that final horizontal rope of a rank. Of course, we had 3 other Sekiwake who were all at least mathematically on Ozeki runs, Wakamoto Haru, Daieisho, and Hoshodyu, and the Sumo Council has said that they are still all considered to be on Ozeki runs. Yes, all of the Sekiwake this tournament got 10 plus wins. They all looked great. I will be going into much greater detail on this when we update our who will be our next Ozeki rankings before the next tournament, so stay tuned for that. But yes, all 3 of them have 21 or 22 wins over the last 2 tournaments, so I would expect if all these gentlemen got 12 wins in the next tournament, we could see multiple Ozeki promotions in the near future. Yeah, like 5 Ozeki by the end of the year? That'd be awesome. And also, speaking of more Ozeki, Takakeisho ended up getting 8 and 7, barely clearing Kataban, but he got to the 8, which we predicted. He did not look his best, but as we have seen with Takakeisho, he can look great one tournament, very hurt the next tournament, and then come back to win everything when he comes back. So I am hopeful that Takakeisho will return very, very strong for Nagoya, even though he tends to not do well there. If you go back through Takakeisho's career, you'll notice he got a Junyusho in the last Nagoya tournament, but preceding that in his Ozeki tenure, every other Nagoya tournament he has gone Kyujo, so let's hope that that's not a pattern. Now, while the top ranks of the Sanyaku are going to be pretty much the same as they were, except with the exception of Kiribayama, moving up 1 spot from Sekiwake to Ozeki, the Komusubi are going to be in a little bit of flux. Kota Nowaka ended up getting his 8th win on the final day, so he should be staying right there at Komusubi, but unfortunately we will be losing Komusubi Wakataka Kage and Shodai after this tournament. Of course, Wakataka Kage got hurt in the last tournament, had an 0-15 Kyujo. He is going to be diving way down the Banzuke before we see him again. Shodai I expected to do a little bit better than he did. I expected 9 wins from him. Instead, we got the inverse. He got the 6 and 9. He'll be dropping down into the Joy, but I will expect him to be facing the Yokozuna in the next tournament. And of course, channel favorite Abi got an 8 and 7 at Maegashira 1, again, on the last day. And he will be bumping his way up from Maegashira 1 to Komusubi in the next tournament. So Abi, welcome back to the Sanyaku. And if it's a recap episode, you know it's time for Uncle Sumo's Attaboys. Of course, Uncle Sumo's Attaboys is a recurring segment where we look at the previous Basho and we give a few extra Attaboys to people who didn't necessarily win special prizes or Yushos, but still had an amazing tournament and need a little extra love from the Dohyo. Of course, all the Sekiwake got double digits. They stayed on their Ozeki run. Amazing for them. They've been pre-Attaboyed. But our first official Attaboy goes to Maegashira 4 Nishikigi. As most of us know, he is a legally blind wrestler, so he's already walking in with a bit of a handicap in the ring. Did not start well at all. Had a 1-6 record to start the tournament, and then won all 8 to end it with a 9-6. Amazing focus, amazing sumo, great work Nishikigi, attaboy. Maegashira 6 and former Ozeki and 3-time former champion Mitakeumi. He got a 9-6. And you might be thinking, well, former Ozeki, former champion, of course he has a winning record down in Maegashira. Well, Mitakeumi has not had a winning record in a bit. In fact, he has not had a winning record since his very first tournament at Ozeki last year. So hopefully this means an upturn of luck and outcomes for Mitakeumi. I would love to see him have another shot at the Sanyaku. Attaboy. Maegashira 9, Hirado Umi. Okay, I love this guy. He's like a little bit of a pixie, but he's got that Buddha belly, so I love my little Buddha. I'm so happy he ended up getting a winning record. Got a 9-6, despite the fact he was promoted reasonably aggressively down the stretch, getting losses against Kiribayama, Hoshodyu, and Asanoyama. With the exception, of course, of like Terunofuji, pixie-sized wrestlers tend to have a ceiling in Grand Sumo, so I don't know where his is going to end up being, but for right now, he hasn't hit it yet. He's young, and he's got great technique. I look forward to seeing him hopefully up in the Joy next tournament. Attaboy. And our final Attaboy, Maegashira 16 Oho. Ooh, now Oho has been a very frustrating and inconsistent Rikishi up until this point. He, of course, has looked great in some tournaments, like this tournament, and 11-4 won his final 7. So if he manages to be getting a handle on his sumo consistently, he has a great sumo body. It does not look like he has any lingering injuries yet in his young body. So I would expect him to be pushing his way up the Banzuke for the rest of the year. I have been wrong about Oho before, but let's say optimistic at least for the near term until we have a solid reason to not be. Oho, attaboy. And now we come to our recurring wrap-up segment, Worried. This is a segment where we discuss people who had a rather difficult basho and whether or not we should be worried about their careers going forward. First person I am worried about, Kota Shoho. Now, if you've been watching the channel, we know that Kota Shoho has been bouncing up and down the Banzuke since his teens at this point. He made it all the way up to Makuuchi, made it up to the very top of the Maegashira ranks, got hurt, fell down to Judyo. But since his comeback from Judyo, he has had 8 basho up in the top ranks. He has had 1 Jun Yusho, but also only 2 total Kachikoshi, and also 2 Kyujos at this point. So yes, Kota Shoho is still very, very young for the Makuuchi division, but he has been up there for long enough that he should be developing a bit more of a consistent style. I still don't know what his true talent level is, and if he keeps getting hurt like this, we've seen many, many young wrestlers dash their hopes upon the rocks of injury. Ooh, I'm getting into the metaphors today. Also worried about Maegashira 2 Takayasu. Now, I expected a lot of carnage in the upper Maegashira ranks, and I was mostly right about that. Tobizaru and Abi ended up getting Kachikoshi. Didn't expect that. I expected Takayasu to do well this tournament, because he's been having a lot of Kyujo recently, but then, when he comes off the Kyujo, he seems to be able to bounce back up into the Joy and do well for a tournament or two, and then have another Kyujo. I thought this was going to be one of the good tournaments. But if we go to the stats in the last 12 basho for Takayasu, he has in fact had 3 Junyusho, but he's also had 6 Kyujo. So in his last 2 years of professional sumo, half of them have been spent basically on the injured list. Now I still think if everything goes right for Takayasu, he could pull that sort of royal flush Yusho out of his back pocket. He still has a lot of skill and oh so much sumo heart, but I do not think we are ever going to see another Takayasu Ozeki run. I just don't see him getting 3 consecutive basho of excellence all the way up at the top ranks. However, one person I am not worried about, Maegashira 5 Kinbozan. Okay, Kinbozan did not have a great tournament. In fact, he lost 8 of his last 9. And he is a little bit older than we think he is. He's 25. Remember, he was a university wrestler and did not start his professional sumo career until relatively late. But this was his first time up in the Joy due to all the interstable conflicts and the Kyujos we ended up having at the top ranks. He ended up facing a very, very tough schedule. I just think this is his first time up there. He's getting his feet under him. I still expect great things from Kinbozan and would expect him to be in the Sanyaku by the end of the year. Now let's see who's taken that midnight train to Judyo. Now, the Makuuchi Judyo exchange for this tournament should be very, very interesting. By my math, we have 5 Judyo wrestlers who are worthy of promotion. Judyo 1, Gonoyama, got a 14-1. He is definitely up. Also, Judyo 1, Shonen no Umi, 11-4. With records like this, there is absolutely no doubt those guys are definitely getting promoted up to Makuuchi. Also, Judyo 8, Ochiai, now called Haku Oho. We'll talk about that before the next tournament. But yes, he has changed his Shikono. But yes, Teen Phenom Ochiai got a 14-1, lost in a playoff to Gonoyama. 14-1 at Judyo 8 should get him promoted up to Makuuchi. So those are the 3 who are definitely going up. Now we have a few who are definitely going down. First of all, Ichi Nojo retired before the tournament, so everyone below him gets a half-rank promotion. That will clear an open spot in Makuuchi. But we should also see demotions for Ichi Yamamoto and Maegashira 15, got a 4-11. Maegashira 16, Metodio, a 5-10, that's also very demotable. And at the bottom of the Banzuke, Maegashira 17, Kagayaki, got a 7-8. Now we have, of course, seen in some Banzuke where 7 and 8 at the bottom of the Banzuke doesn't demote you, but since we have so many people who I think are promotable, I don't think Kagayaki is going to make it this time. So, the math is currently working out. We have 4 definite demotions and 3 definite promotions. But I think Atami Fuji at Judio 8 with a 13-2 should be promotable from there. If we look at the history of promotions from Judio 8, 13 wins is usually more than enough for promotion. And we should also look at Bushozan at Judio 3 with a 10-5. Now, there are a number of cases where 10-5 does not get you up from Judio 3, but it's still a worthy promotion record. So that would bring us up to 5 promotions that I think are all definitely earned, but right now we only have 4 demotions. So, is there a case for one more Makauchi demotion? Yes. I think there are 3 interesting cases for demotion. The easiest one to make would be Aoyama at Maegashira 12 with a 5-10. Now, mathematically, this would be a slight over-demotion for Aoyama, but I have found a number of cases in the past where, when you get a 5-10 at Maegashira 12, you get bumped down to Judio. So, if we're going by precedent, I think Aoyama is going to be the 5th demotion. But if we look at Kotoshoho and Maegashira 5, only had a 2-13. And if we look up to Endo, who got no wins at Maegashira 2, there is precedent for those records at those ranks dropping people down to Judio. There's not a lot of precedent there. I believe there is exactly 1 case for a Maegashira 2 dropping down with an 0-15, and 1 case of a Maegashira 5 dropping down with a 2-13. So if we are going with the 5 up, 5 down scenario, I think it is going to be Aoyama. So, in the story of Sumo, it looks like we are still firmly in the Terunofuji chapter of Sumo. Of course, you can basically break down Sumo history into the idea of who is the alpha dog at any given time. And this tournament proved Terunofuji is still the alpha dog. As I have mentioned many times on this channel, I believe right now the Banzuke is a little bit objectively weak compared to the near past. And you might ask, well, how do we know if a Banzuke is weak? Well, there are a few ways to look at it. Number 1, we've had a lot of Maegashira Yusho in the past few years, and the more Maegashira Yusho you see, you generally tend to find out that there isn't a dominant alpha dog who's showing up every tournament. And in fact, between Hakuho and Terunofuji, we have had a lot of Yokozuna absence recently. You will also notice we have had a lot of 12-3 Yusho. And despite recent history, that is not a popular score to win with. In fact, it is much more popular to get a Zensho perfect record win than it is to win with 12-3. I even showed it to y'all in graph form, but here it is again. This is yet another data point showing that we are probably in a weaker than normal Banzuke. And the third point I want to make is that when our Yokozuna do come back from injury with all the miles and all the wraps, they tend to dominate. So this tells me that we aren't necessarily looking at, well, we have so much talent at the top of the division, they're just canceling each other out and no one can get Yokozuna level scores. But when a real Yokozuna shows up with real Yokozuna technique, it doesn't seem to be much of a discussion. So this just tells me we still have Terunofuji as an alpha dog and no one else is even close. Yet. We have Takakeisho, our longest serving current Ozeki, but as we have seen this year, he just doesn't seem to be the kind of wrestler who's going to get 13-2 or better in 2 consecutive tournaments, even in a best case scenario. Our current Sekiwake crop is excellent and talented, but you'll notice some of them are a little bit long in the tooth. For Sumo, anyway. We have 2 29-year-olds who are knocking on the door of Ozeki, and that is reasonably late to be considering an Ozeki run. Kiribayama just entering his peak at 27. We'll see if he has another level in his sumo. Hoshodyu, while young and with a lot of technique and oh so much swagger, still has never gotten 12 wins in a tournament. And of course, 12 wins is pretty much the floor, very rare exceptions, but pretty much the floor for a Yusho. And he would have to get a Yusho to get Yokozuna, maybe not for Ozeki, but that would definitely help him with his case. It's been a very long time in Sumo since we've had what you'd call a lightning bolt Ozeki. Someone who strikes the Banzuke like a lightning bolt and charges their way #1 with a bullet from the lower divisions, and then in their early 20s manages to get the Yokozuna rope. I don't know about you, but I'm looking at Ochiai and thinking, maybe. He still has a long way to go. He hasn't even hit the top division yet, but he's looked excellent so far. He would be my guess for the next person to really shake up the Sumo world. But of course, time makes fools of all of our predictions, so do let me know in the comments, who do you think coming out of this youth movement is going to be our next Yokozuna Alpha Dog? Thank you for joining us here on the Dohyo. Please remember to like and subscribe if you liked and are not subscribed. This just helps the YouTube algorithms get the Dohyo love to all corners of the internet. And if you didn't like this, I am Sumo Kaboom, both of them. Do stay tuned to the channel. We have a lot of great episodes coming up before the next tournament. We are going to be updating our future Ozeki rankings. I'm going to be breaking down the Makauchi division into tiers. Now that we are halfway through the year, we will be updating the charts of my tiers, and we will have our bolder predictions for the Nagoya tournament. You're not going to want to miss that. So stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time on the Dohyo.